large demand for complementary medicines, and I see my job as a retail pharmacist is to provide what the customer wants.
You're asking people to spend money on something that won't help them.
The front of shop is now the new gold mine.
If you just go and pick up something off the shelf, you're wasting your money mostly, and there are a few instances in which it might actually be dangerous.
It really is crazy stuff. You're pissing the money down the toilet for no benefit.
Welcome to Four Corners. Vitamins and supplements have never been more popular in Australia. We spend more money out of pocket on complementary medicine than on prescription drugs. The industry has doubled in a decade to become a multi-billion-dollar business. It's also an export success story, with brands like Swisse and Blackmores now in hot demand overseas. What is much less certain is whether complementary medicines actually help us in the ways they claim, and whether consumers can tell the difference between what works and what doesn't. Aggressive marketing of these products is pitting pharmacies against their traditional partners in the medical profession, who say pharmacies are giving legitimacy to dubious products. A draft review of pharmacy regulation out this month asks whether complementary medicines belong in pharmacies at all. Jeff Thompson reports.
A skin flap white, 2 skin caps and a long black.
We all know the key to good health is exercising and eating well. But because none of our diets are perfect, most of us are making up for it with supplements.
So I take fish oil, magnesium every day.
I only take omega-3 fish oil.
All the B vitamins, absolutely.
Yes, I do. I take coenzyme Q10, vitamin E, vitamin D, multivitamins.
Vitamin D, B, magnesium and zinc.
And you take a multivitamin?
Every day. Yep.
And it works?
I think it works.
Which helps explain why complementary medicines are a $4.7 billion industry, with 7 out of 10 Australians taking some form of vitamins or supplements.
We take everything. Yeah, do they work? Who knows? But
so
they don't do any harm.
So just in case?
Just in case.
Despite their popularity, for most complementary medicines, the evidence is scant that they do us any good.
It's very rare to meet an Australian family that doesn't have some form of vitamin supplement somewhere in the family. And what a lot of Australian families have is very expensive urine.
In Australia, there's a strong emphasis on safety, and we do that very, very well. And as far as I can see, less stress on does it actually do what it claims, which leaves it open for the consumer not really knowing if they're buying a product that will actually do what it claims to do.
Sporting dreams, tested by early mornings and grueling training sessions, brought to life every 4 years.
Complementary medicines are spruiked to the hilt by a dazzling parade of Australian celebrities.
To help maintain energy levels.
$50 million on marketing in a year has bought industry giant Swisse the endorsement of our Olympic team and our top cricketers, along with stars of AFL, tennis and other sports.
That's why I choose Swisse.
Our top actors and foodies are paid to dance to Swisse's tune too.
We can all use an extra boost of vitamins, minerals and antioxidants in our diet. So I start every day with Swisse Superfood. That's why I choose Swisse.
The problem we have in Australia is that you get a much more profitable return on investment from putting $50 million into celebrity and marketing rather than research.
Swisse began in the 1960s when Kevin Ring, an organic baker in Melbourne's St Kilda, started selling pollen tablets after a trip to Switzerland. It's gone from a single shop in the early 70s to an omnipresent global brand.
We really see our brand as an investment, so we see that as important as the factory that manufactures our product.
Former CEO Radek Sali is the marketing genius who drove Swisse's phenomenal success. all of which has just been sold to the Chinese baby formula giant Biostime for $1.75 billion.
Swisse came up throughout my life, actually. My father introduced myself to the men's multivitamin as an 8-9-year-old, and I remember having a real affinity for the brand back then. But I think that ultimately, having grown up with such a health-focused family and Dad being a professor of surgery and Mum being a medical scientist, health was probably where I was going to end up.
Radek Sali's father is the founding director of the not-for-profit National Institute of Integrative Medicine in Melbourne.
Well, this is our academic floor, and we have the lecture theatre over here. We've got laboratories and office for the academic staff.
And what work are you doing in the laboratories?
A former surgeon, Professor Avni Sali is an Australian complementary medicine pioneer.
Well, I'm probably one of the first people in Australia to be interested in the health of the public. My medical philosophy is about being able to achieve the best results with the most effective and safest treatment that you could have, but also to prevent illness in the first instance, because many of these illnesses, prevention is clearly the best approach. Well, we do various studies.
Avni Sali is currently working on a treatment for cancer.
We've found that we can detect the cancer cells, but also what is really very exciting is that by changing lifestyle and using various natural therapies, we can actually get rid of the cancer cells. When they've been detected in a way where there's no primary cancer to be seen by a scanning technique.
The interesting thing, what I'm hearing...
Back in the 80s, Professor Sali worked with Swisse to develop its first multivitamin.
Well, my first contact with Swisse was when the head of Swisse in about 1981-82 came along and said to me, can you help us with, because I'd been doing at that time quite a lot of media work. And in fact, in the 1980s, I was a bit of a media doctor. There weren't any others either. But he said, could you help us with our formulae? And I thought, well, gee, I'm becoming important. People from outside are coming along seeking my expertise. And it was pretty easy for me to help them.
Professor Sali is among the authors of some clinical trials, cited as evidence that Swisse multivitamins work. The fact that his institute receives funding from Swisse is declared as a conflict of interest. Swisse has praised Avni Sali for helping the company achieve its goal of being absolutely credible and scientifically proven.
Do you see it as a conflict of interest that you continue to be involved, even on the periphery, in studies about supporting the validity of Swisse products?
Not really, no. I feel very comfortable about involvement at that level. As I said, I've never been funded by Swisse to do research on one of their supplements.
But you were instrumental in developing their products, and you get the institute here gets some funding from Swisse.
Well, we when you say products, the two multivitamin products, and I get some funding by being on the Swisse advisory panel. Yes.
But that's a comfortable relationship. You don't feel that the perception of conflict of interest is a fair one?
I don't think it's very fair at all. Not from where I sit.
There is scientific consensus that vitamin supplements are useful in treating specific deficiencies, such as taking folate during pregnancy. But the industry tells us we also need multivitamins.
There was a recent study by the ABS which suggested that 90% of Australians are actually deficient in their essential vitamins, so they're not taking their fruit and vegetables a day. Multivitamins help play a role, but they only play a role. People should still, as we advocate, exercise properly, eat well and supplement when required.
In Australia, for the average person, no, there is no benefit from multivitamins, minerals, etc. Many of these products have got 50 or more ingredients. They aim to promote themselves not just multivitamins and minerals, but herbs, a touch of food extracts, etc. It really is crazy stuff. What you need is a good diet. You're pissing the money down the toilet for no benefit. Now, if that's what you want to do and you want to give some profits to the companies that produce those products, well, good on you, but it's not what I want to do.
Multivitamins often make claims to being backed by scientific evidence, that they help with things like stress and boost our energy levels. The studies supporting such claims are often small and funded by the companies themselves.
One needs to look at these studies critically. They're often small studies, small numbers of patients, subject to a high error rate. Just as if you toss a coin 10 times, you can get a run of 8 or 9 heads. Doesn't mean that that's the truth. Again, if we toss a coin 250 times, we're much more likely to get 50-50 analysis. And it's the same with scientific studies. Small studies are likely to have a high chance of positive effect.
Take this study of the effects of Swiss Men's Ultivite on the mood and stress of 50 healthy older men. The free abstract claims that compared to a placebo, there were significant reductions in depression, anxiety and stress. You need to pay to get access to the full study, but if you do, you'll learn that the participants' feelings of stress actually didn't change at all. These often ambiguous results from small trials are enough to market a product saying it is based on scientific evidence.
Well, of course, the bigger the trial, the better, but it does depend on funding. And the other thing that is important is, are you using something that could kill the person? And if you're using something that's quite safe, then you don't need as much evidence, because I'm less likely to, well, in fact, very unlikely to actually damage someone. And
so if it's doing no harm, then it doesn't matter.
Well, if it's doing no harm, then that's the first important thing. And in any study, that's what you'd want to show.
But they also cost an awful lot of money over time.
Yes,
Shouldn't they also work?
Yes, well, there's evidence. Well, for most of the supplements that I'm aware of, there is some form of evidence to support their use. I mean, if you're really looking at a huge study, well, yes, we'd like to do that too, but who's going to pay for it?
Now, you may be thinking this is just about dodgy weight loss products, but the stench goes all the way to the top, to the former leader of this country, Ricky Ponting.
You can be confident Swiss Men's Ultivites work, because they've had them independently tested.
And you know, when Ricky says independently tested, he means that the tests were partly paid for by Swiss.
In 2013, Avni Salih sued the ABC's checkout program for defamation after they ran a segment about his relationship with Swiss. The case was settled, but no money was paid.
And that 2 of the testers work at an institute funded by Swiss. And that one of those testers just happens to be the father of the CEO of Swiss. Which doesn't necessarily mean the tests were worthless, although it was conducted on a very small number of fit older men. Something that's not often mentioned in Ricky's adverts. But hey, it's not like they're claiming it's one of the only multivitamins with proven results.
One of the only multivitamins in Australia with proven results.
Oh.
There could be a perception that when you're involved in a trial, there would be an interest in positive results because...
Over 2/3 of studies are funded by the pharmaceutical industry. The funding's got to come from somewhere, but the funding did not come to me. I was a peripheral person. The funding was directed completely by the Swinburne people who analysed the results. I never saw any of the results whatsoever.
So you don't think you have a conflict of interest?
Well, I don't have a conflict of interest when, in fact, I'm certainly not influencing the results in any way whatsoever.
Melbourne's Swinburne University is just one of the top Australian universities which have entered into funding deals with Swiss and Blackmores. La Trobe University has agreed to accept $15 million from Swiss to establish a complementary medicine evidence centre. Blackmores donated $5 million to the University of Western Sydney, where it also funds scholarships. At Sydney University, a $1.3 million Maurice Blackmore Chair of Integrative Medicine is awaiting appointment. Last year, even Australia's peak scientific body, the CSIRO, signed a 3-year multi-million-dollar research deal with Swiss. The company is also a sponsor of the ABC's international service, Australia Plus.
There's excellent research to show that company-sponsored research tends to be much more positive than independent research, which is why we need replication. And our concern with companies like Swiss, who've had many upheld complaints about their research and about their evidence, is that clearly, yes, they would like to improve their research, and I certainly support that. But one of the concerns of them going to an organisation like CSIRO, dependent on external funds, is that there's some temptation there to produce results that will keep the company happy.
Now, 2 years ago, Ken Harvey resigned his position at La Trobe University over the Swiss deal.
I had put in complaints about Swiss products. I felt that there were dangers in a university aligning themselves with a company like that there would be pressure on the researchers and the academics to produce positive results. And interestingly, as soon as I resigned, I was offered exactly the same job at Monash University that had refused the Swiss offer. And I've been here very happily ever since.
I've got a lot of flexibility in my role.
At Sydney University, Dr. Nick Fuller is running an industry-funded clinical trial of complementary medicines for weight loss.
I'm involved in the study setup.
There are a large range of products on the shelf that claim to have weight loss benefits. However, when you go through the evidence associated with a lot of these products, unfortunately, a lot of this evidence is very poorly conducted, so it's from poorly conducted research studies. It's of very small or short-term duration in very small numbers. They need to be encouraged to go
Nick Fuller defends industry-funded research at universities.
In a tightly regulated funding environment, which we now are situated in, we need to be encouraging industry-aligned research. And these recent instances where leading institutions are aligning with industry bodies, this is a positive result as long as that research is clearly outlined from the onset and clearly disseminated to the general public and published through peer-reviewed scientific literature, regardless of the outcome.
Swiss and Blackmores declined to be interviewed for this story. The industry lobby group spoke on their behalf.
I'm pleased to actually put the industry perspective and give your story some balance.
Complementary Medicines Australia cites a 2014 report funded by another lobby group, the Australian self-medication industry, to argue for the sector's value.
The report suggested that we could actually save $3 billion from our healthcare bill just by those 6 complementary medicines and 4 chronic disease groups. So I think there is both the direct benefit and the indirect benefit to the economy.
But the report's economic assumptions include some complementary medicines which have not been proven to prevent chronic disease. It makes certain assumptions about, for instance, that krill oil is going to prevent heart attacks and things like that.
I think all economic models make assumptions.
The term complementary medicines covers a vast array of products. They include everything from vitamins to herbs, to weight loss supplements and homeopathy.
Complementary medicine is generally a term for products that are sold to purport health benefits, but usually without any demonstrated health benefits. Oh, the old joke, what do you call an alternative medicine that works? It's a medicine.
Many of us take vitamins just in case, believing they can't hurt us. But some international studies suggest otherwise.
Well, so there was a US Preventive Services Task Force report in 2014 saying that the multivitamins in particular, but most vitamins that people were taking over the shelves, they would not recommend, that there was no evidence of effectiveness in people without a clear deficiency problem. So I'd say if you just go and pick up something off the shelf that you're wasting your money mostly, and there are a few instances in which it might actually be dangerous.
And why is that?
We got very excited about the antioxidants, for example, like beta-carotene in the 1990s, but then when large trials were done, it actually showed an increased incidence of cancer rather than a decrease. So the US task force warned specifically against that.
We've come to the Therapeutic Goods Administration in Canberra. This is the gatekeeper of all complementary medicines sold in Australia.
There's 11,000 complementary medicines on the market. It's much better for us to target our activities to either companies or particular types of products that have problems or are the biggest risk to public health.
Dr. John Skerritt is the TGA's chief.
When it comes to complementary medicines, the sorts of things we test are either products that we are particularly concerned about or that we might get a tip off, or if it's a company that has a poor compliance history. All medicines are a challenge. That's the job of being a regulator. The challenges really relate to compliance. There's a very large number of complementary medicines on the market. There's clearly wide demand for them. But there's a wide range of companies involved, and some of the companies have poor compliance records and some have good compliance records.
To get a complementary medicine on the market, the TGA only requires you to fill out an online form saying the product complies with its rules.
The products have to be from facilities that have been inspected and approved by us. They can only contain ingredients that are permitted. So the safety and the quality is there. And as I said earlier, they can only make certain claims about indications. So they can't cure cancer, they can't fix arthritis, they can't fix asthma. They can make general claims about well-being. And so we also monitor the claims they make on the products and their advertising. But that's done in a post-market sense after they're on the market.
It's a trust-based system, and in terms of evidence to say that the product works, you can just make any claim you like. Now, you tick a box to say you hold the evidence.
Last year, less than 500 out of 11,000 complementary medicines on the market were checked for compliance by the TGA. 80% of them failed. But the public's never told which ones, because compliance problems are treated as commercial in confidence.
80% of complementary medicines looked at last year breached the rules and regulations, mainly because no evidence, false advertising claims, but some of them had problems with the product and the ingredients as well.
We're asking Australian consumers to trust you, but when the industry's products are audited, 80% are found to have compliance breaches.
13 products were viewed to be high risk. There are those which have a wrong font size, which have a spelling mistake, which have a grammar error according to the ARTG. Yes, they're put right quickly, but they're very low risk breaches.
The problems can relate to labelling, either product substances not shown on the labels or labels not having all the information. Or the most common problem is actually that of the companies not holding the efficacy data. Many companies do, and they all are required to, but when we've gone looking for the efficacy data, in some of those reviews, the efficacy data is missing.
They seem to think that a large list of references is good, no one's going to read them, and that's another problem.
Ken Harvey has given his Monash University students a list of 150 complementary medicine advertisements to investigate the veracity of their scientific claims. He calls it whack-a-mole.
Why whack-a-mole? Well, again, because with the current regulatory system, you can whack one bad ad down and others pop up, or the same one pops up.
So yeah, I was looking at one to do with menopausal symptoms.
What the students found has alarmed them.
It wasn't either proven or the studies were, like, many of them were poor quality. However, they list them anyway because how many consumers actually will go and research maybe the way we will.
What have you been looking at?
We've been looking at coenzyme Q10 supplements. So there have been claims that coenzyme Q10 can help for heart health, just generally. But when we actually looked into the evidence, we found that this product really only works for specific cardiovascular disease patients. So the claim really wasn't substantiated by the evidence we could find. And yet you do see that product in basically any pharmacy that you would walk into. It was really disappointing. You'd think that they would be held to a higher standard, that they would be morally obliged to only make claims that were evidence-based, but this was totally against what they should have done.
It's for 17.
The students' findings are lodged as complaints with the independent Therapeutic Goods Advertising Complaints Resolution Panel. Last year, 98% of such complaints were upheld.
The system should have teeth. There should be more.
I thought, when I walk through a pharmacy, that generally I put a sort of trust in the pharmacist to sort of present products that would work. But now, having done this project, it's sort of I'm a bit more sceptical and sort of check into things a little more.
I'm passionate about staying active, so it's important to take care of my body.
After one complaint was upheld in 2015, Swiss was ordered to stop claiming its fish oil relieved rheumatoid arthritis and contained ingredients essential during pregnancy.
So have you used natural therapies before?
Associate Professor John Eden is a specialist in women's health and was part of a government review of complementary medicines in 2003.
It's fair to say most of them have got evidence they do nothing. And I've been researching the area for over 25 years and I'm very keen to find things that work to help patients. I'm not antagonistic at all. I want to find something that helps. But unfortunately, most of what's sold has been shown not to work.
One example he gives is using cranberry supplements to prevent urinary tract infections.
There really is a chemical found in cranberry that really does help prevent urinary tract infections, and yet many of the Australian products don't contain enough of the chemical to have an effect. Now, to me, if you're selling a product claiming it's good, say a cranberry product, and claiming it's good for urinary tract infection and knowingly don't put enough of the product in there, what's that?
So you think that what they're doing effectively is associating themselves with some scientifically established efficacy, but then selling something which isn't and not allowing consumers to know the difference.
Yes, and I think that's happening quite frequently, and I think that's exactly the sort of thing that a regulator should take very seriously.
Why does this matter?
What bothers me, gives me a bit of a righteous anger, is the injustice of it, that people are buying things in good faith in a system that seems to be saying we think this works, and yet there's a good chance the product they're buying does nothing. A well-informed person can go to a health food store or a chemist, look at all the shelves and really have no idea which is a good product and which isn't a good product.
Blackmores is often referred to as the pioneer of natural health in Australia.
Australia's other market leader, Blackmores, has led the industry's march from the fringes to the mainstream on pharmacy shelves. Blackmores spends $50 million a year on marketing too, pushing a reputation for quality.
I'm Marcus Blackmore, and Blackmores is a name you can trust. Because when it comes to your health...
5 years ago, Blackmores was forced to abandon a deal with the Pharmacy Guild to push Blackmores products to customers buying prescription medicines. It was dubbed the Coke and Fries deal.
It's like Coke and Fries at McDonald's. You ask, do you want something with that as a way of increasing sales? But again, it was smacked very severely by both academics and others, and eventually founded on the grounds that there was no evidence to support the various companion deals that came up with.
Our profitability within our dispensary is falling, and we used to place such a reliance on the dispensary, and the front of the shop was largely ignored.
Now the Coke and Fries idea is back in the form of a new software program used by some pharmacists to increase their profits by selling complementary medicines with prescription drugs.
Our team absolutely love the challenge to try and sell more product.
The front of shop is now the new gold mine. That's where we can actually improve our margins and help patients along the way to both better outcomes, loyalty, and increase our own profitability.
We know that people forego important prescription medicines because they can't afford all of them. If you then get a pharmacist saying, as well as your prescription medicines, you need this extra complementary medicine for another $20, $30, $50, then I suspect they're going to forego more essential medicines and take the bullshit instead.
Pharmacists have relied more on income from complementary medicines and other products since the government decided to slash rebates for prescription medicines in 2007.
A lot of community pharmacies, though, are trying to get more revenue out of front of shop. And front of shop means the complementary medicines, the vitamins, the perfumes, the other products that they supply there.
Just take us through if you can.
Economist Professor Stephen King is chairing a federal government review of pharmacy regulation, which is also asking whether complementary medicines should be sold in chemists at all.
We have had passionate community pharmacists decrying their fellow pharmacists for stocking complementary medicines, for stocking vitamins, for stocking homeopathy, for stocking products that have little, if any, medical credence. We've also had many other pharmacists saying, well, what's wrong with this? At least we can give some medical advice. If you come in for horny goatweed or St John's wort and that's going to cause a problem, at least there's a pharmacist there who can talk to you about it, unlike the health food shop or the supermarket. So we've had passionate arguments put on both sides of this case.
No Australian pharmacy group has led the charge into retail more aggressively than Chemist Warehouse. The discount chain has become to pharmacy what Bunnings is to hardware. Chemist Warehouse now has 380 stores around the country, and all of them are stacked with complementary medicine.
Damien, this is the warehouse of the Chemist Warehouse. Yes, exactly right. This is our distribution centre. From here, we distribute to all our Victorian and Tasmanian stores, and we do a backup fulfilment for all the interstate. So there's some vitamin product, other health and beauty products is what we do here.
Chemist Warehouse's director and founder, Damien Gance, believes pharmacists should give customers what they want.
We have a very single philosophy, and that is we provide what the consumer's after, but that will be within some limits. But for the most part, if the consumer wants something to help them to live well, get well, stay well, we'll provide it.
There is a large demand for complementary medicines, and I see my job as a retail pharmacist is to provide what the customer wants. And if they're after complementary medicines, then I'm happy to provide them.
In terms of the traditional pharmacy model, if I can put it that way, the pharmacist only and the prescription medicines account for around 70 to 80% of the revenue. The rest is front of shop. The discounters have turned that on its head. The discount model is around 70 or 80% of the revenue coming from front of shop. The complementary medicines, the vitamins, the perfumes and so on, and only about 30% from behind the counter. So that's the big change that the discounters have brought. So they're certainly putting pressure on the traditional community pharmacy.
Their margins are tight, and I think there's more and more evidence that they do make the majority of their income from the other things they sell, and the problem lies when they sell things that are potentially useful, potentially harmful.
The pharmacist's embrace of complementary medicine has put them in conflict with the doctor's peak body, the Australian Medical Association.
We've got a number of concerns about the use of complementary medicine in pharmacy. If we're talking about non-evidence-based treatments, they're given a legitimacy by being sold by pharmacists, an important member of the professional healthcare team.
The Guild's view is that we promote or we encourage our members to keep as many evidence-based complementary medicines as possible. There's no two ways about it. That's our policy. It's always been our policy. Evidence-based complementary medicines should be the ones that you're supporting.
Last month, the consumer advocacy group Choice sent undercover shoppers into 240 mostly large chain chemists around Australia to test the advice they got when they complained to pharmacists of stress.
Around half of our participants were told to see a doctor or another professional. Half weren't. And only about a third of people were told to take general lifestyle adjustments in order to address stress. So 89% of people were told to buy a product, typically a complementary medicine product. And 59% of people were just told that it worked. They weren't given any further information. 24% of people were told that it was scientifically proven to work. What's really disappointing with these statistics is that in some cases they were recommended a product that we know doesn't work.
Almost 30% of the shoppers were offered highly dubious products, such as flower essence remedies or homeopathy.
There were instances where pharmacists were recommending products, for example, homeopathic options, that have no evidence that they work. So you're asking people to spend money on something that won't help them.
Homeopathy is one of the most controversial forms of complementary medicine. It claims to treat illness with extremely diluted natural substances, some of which can be toxic in large doses. It's dismissed as quackery by mainstream science.
Well, the bottom line is that we found no evidence of homeopathy working for any of the multiple conditions, about 60 of them, that we looked at in this very thorough review.
Bond University's Paul Glasziou chaired a 2015 review of homeopathy by Australia's peak health research body, the National Health and Medical Research Council.
So we looked at that entire body of evidence that we had found, plus what was submitted to us, and the conclusion we came to was that there was no convincing evidence for homeopathy for any of the conditions that it's been studied in, which is actually quite a few. So it's not that there's no evidence, it's that there's quite a lot of evidence. It's either poor quality evidence or the good quality evidence suggests there's no effect.
Stephen King was alarmed by some of the things he heard from pharmacists at forums held around Australia as part of his review of pharmacy regulation.
One of the pharmacists at a forum had a mother come in with a young infant. The pharmacist believed that the infant was simply, it was a young mother, first child, a bit concerned. The pharmacist provided homeopathic infant drops to the mother and suggested that she try those. Now, is that a good thing or not? When asked, the pharmacist said, well, yes, I know it was just a placebo, but the mother would have gone away and the baby would have probably quietened down of its own accord. The mother would have been less worried. The contrary argument is that mother may have gone away with the impression that this was legitimate medicine, and next time that she went into a pharmacy, said, well, I want the homeopathic medicine, and even worse, may have gone down the homeopathic route with, for example, vaccines, where the child's health is put at risk.
The complementary medicines industry rejects the NHMRC review and continues to defend homeopathy.
I'm saying the jury is still out on the NHMRC review. It was fundamentally flawed and skewed from day number one. If we're going to have a proper review, let's have a proper review. But to actually set the parameters so high that pharmaceutical studies wouldn't make it through, I think it is questionable.
So you're arguing that homeopathy works?
I'm arguing that there is a role for homeopathy, and some consumers do find that it works.
But
homeopathy has been around for thousands and thousands of years.
But that doesn't mean it works.
I don't understand the...
It's been around for a long time, and some people believe it works.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it does work.
There are positive studies on hair fever, on children's diarrhoea. Smaller studies which you're welcome to look at and share. It's just that they didn't meet the very high bar set by the NHMRC.
A lot of policy bodies around the world have looked at the review, said this is the best review that has ever been done on the subject of homeopathy. There have been other previous government commissioned reviews, but none of them with the depth and thoroughness of the NHMRC review. So policy bodies have taken it very seriously. So have homeopathy associations because of the threat that it causes them.
While the pharmacist's professional body, the Pharmaceutical Society of Australia, rejects the sale of homeopathy, the influential pharmacy owners lobby does not.
Homeopathy, the evidence is pretty scant there, so we don't recommend or promote or encourage pharmacists to certainly recommend those for any indication, to start with. But
you don't recommend that they don't stock them?
No. At the end of the day, it's the pharmacy owner's decision, based again on the demographics, and making sure that when you do have any homeopathy products on your shelf, that you make it clear that the evidence is scant.
There have been attempts to reform regulation of complementary medicines for more than a decade.
Since 2002, there have been 17 reviews into complementary medicines and advertising done by the federal government and other bodies, either on specific bits or the general problem. And none of them have reached any conclusion to date. Number of reasons for that. I mean, a constant has been industry lobbying, saying they're very happy with the existing regulatory system, thank you. But the other problems are bureaucrats change, ministers change, governments change.
For at least a decade and a half, I've been calling for a green tick concept, for example, that would basically just produce, have three criteria. Does the product do what it says? Is it safe? And is it well made? They're the three questions, and I think all that could be satisfied, pretty easily by a company that makes a good product. And I thought it was a no-brainer, but it didn't get up.
The TGA is trying to push through a reform which would create a new class of evidence-based complementary medicines.
We would test the efficacy, and the company would be able to say this product has been TGA tested and has passed.
So they will carry a sticker that say this has been tested for safety and efficacy by the TGA?
They will carry some form of indication that they've been tested for safety and efficacy. Whether it's a sticker, whether it's words, is still there to be discussed both with stakeholders and government. And we expect that by about April we'll be able to go to the Minister and other ministers and say, these are the options we put in front of stakeholders, whether it's a tick, whether it's a symbol, or whether it's some wording about the product having been tested.
The details are still being worked out, but we absolutely encourage and support it because evidence will be independently assessed, but also research which is being done to support that high-level claim will be protected.
Lobbying continues against any labelling system which would make unproven products look bad.
We have a growing international trade. So if you're an Asian consumer and you pick up two products identical and the New Zealand product doesn't have that disclaimer and ours does, I think you're actually disadvantaging Australians.
The challenge will be to see who wins. Will industry lobbying destroy any reform yet again? Or will the weight of time, the pressure from consumer groups and health professional groups and others actually means that this time something might happen? I'm not holding my breath.
Until real reform takes place, consumers will continue to rely on pharmacists to sort the proven from the placebos.
When we look at the most trusted professions, year on year on year, I'm proud to say that at the top is doctors, nurses and pharmacists. So that respect has been hard won. That's put at risk if they're being seen to promote treatments that increasingly the average consumer recognises might be a load of rubbish.
If you want to know more about how the system works and the evidence around the products you use, there's a wide range of information on our website. Next week, as the war against Islamic State intensifies, our correspondent Matt Brown reports from the front lines of Mosul, the biggest urban battle since World War II. In this gripping story, he follows the course of the battle all the way into the shattered city. See you then.